Hi everyone, today we got the gap higher on the UK trade deal announcement. You can see we did give that back early, and then we did hold the 55 EMA as support. We held the trend lines through here, and then we got to this major trend. We did push through there, hit the level 569.90. Once we touched that level, we did immediately reject from there, but now we are holding a low, higher low here, higher low setup potentially here, looking for that push through that level tomorrow. But let's take a look at all of the charts and see if that thesis holds up. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So in news today, we did get the UK trade deal. He put out some tweets about this. When I say he, I mean Donald Trump put out some tweets late last night and then early this morning about a trade deal, and then we found out it was the United Kingdom. We've now signed that trade deal, and this is definitely a good look for the US economy and really for the UK economy. You can see the US has a trade goods surplus with the UK, so that is good as well. We are making a little bit of money there. They do mention final details being written up in the coming weeks, but this is very conclusive, and this is billions and billions of dollars of access for the American exports, as well as reducing or eliminating multiple trade barriers for US products. So overall, good trade deal. Hopefully this gets hammered out all the way. And they say 10% blanket tariff for UK, so still trying to make a little money there, adjusting tariffs for UK autos, and giving good opportunities to US farmers, ranchers, producers. If this is the framework for multiple deals here in the future, this is going to be a very, very good thing for the stock market and for the economy going forward. So hopefully this is the framework. This is the first deal to fall, and now we need to see if the rest of these kind of fall in line with this deal. Moving over to fear and greed, you can see fear and greed stepping up to a 62, a big step up from 56, continues to rally through here. It seems like we're going to get all the way into extreme greed at this point. So that means there's a little bit more room, and you can see momentum looking for this to rally to that 125, strength also looking to push through here. Want to see this get into the 5 range now. Breadth has been an extreme greed, but overall strong there. Put call ratio continuing to fall. We saw some low levels on this yesterday, but that's a big step down. And it seems like the bears are moving out of the markets at least a little bit. I'm definitely shifting here today. Volatility continues to fall. We said it did yesterday, probably going to continue on that trajectory. Then you got safe haven demand coming down a little bit, but still extreme greed. And then junk bonds, same thesis there. Still extreme greed. Quick look at seasonality. You can see seasonally this is a bullish period in that post-election time frame. Obviously the geopolitics has been a major factor here, not just the election time period, but based on this it should be relatively bullish here through the middle/second half of the month. And it seems like that's what we're getting, at least for now. Moving over to the economic calendar, you can see jobless claims continuing and initial both came in better than expectations. So jobs market a little bit better there. Atlanta Fed numbers a little bit better. Fed balance sheet went up. Interesting. 67.11 versus 67.09. So we did see just a little bit of quantitative easing, even though they said they weren't going to do that. They said they were going to continue to tighten, but we did see that balance sheet expand there just a smidgen this week. So interesting. We'll continue to watch that over the next couple weeks. And then for tomorrow, really no data that should move markets. Moving over to the charts, looking at the S&Ps, you can see we ended up gapping up and getting a doji here. We did go through and touch that 200. The 200 there was 570.41. We got a high of day of 570.31. So we'll call it a touch, very, very close, within 10 cents of that level. And after hours, we're basically flat, falling about $1, a little bit more than I kind of thought we would. But right now, we're still holding in this zone. Got a slightly higher high on that wick like we talked about. The momentum is still not great, but the RSI is hanging in there really strong. And really at this point, based on this move, you have to assume that this structure is going to continue to swing higher. I thought we were going to get a bigger breakdown from here, and I still think that that is a possibility. But the way this is held up and the news today, and if we do get continued news of potential trade deals, and this structure continues to hold here as long as 559.76 continues to hold as support, we should expect that this is going to push through there at some point. Obviously, we're very extended on the short time frames, but look at this medium time frame. There's still lots of room before we get overbought conditions. Not saying that it's impossible we break down. I've had a bearish thesis for a while, but you just have to accept that this is trending higher for now, and we haven't seen that breakdown in structure yet. If 559 goes, there's absolutely a lot of room down to that 21 EMA, but look how much this 21 is continuing to trend higher every single day. from yesterday to today, we went from 541.65 up to 544.92. So $3, and then we should expect that that's going to go again another $3 at least to kind of 547, 548 in there, somewhere in here. And that is going to take us very, very close to that 550 level. So even if you did get a breakdown to this zone here, you would expect that 21 EMA to hold support. This has been a really aggressive run. And for now, you have to play the markets that you have, which is a little bit bullish. Despite this 200, I am still very concerned that we could reject from there and get a bigger breakdown. But until this 559 level goes, we have to stay bullish, at least in my opinion. Moving over to the Tasty charts, you can see we're still very much in bullish conditions. We did come down to that trailing stop, find support in there, which is very, very close to this trailing resistance. Now it is basically support. We came down to this zone, found support, bounced in here. Are we going to hold support in here again and bounce again? Trailing stop 561.79 in here. You got the 89 EMA in there as well at 561.27. As long as this zone in here holds, then we should see this kind of continue to the upside. Really, if this was going to continue through, we needed this to reject in here and get that lower low set up in here. But so far it has not done that. The 89 held. We didn't even test the 144, so looking for this to continue higher in tomorrow's session. Moving over to the Qs here, you can see that 200 SMA continues to be resistance. We did get way, way above it mid-session. That was at 492.70 was the high of day. That took us very close to the high back here on 25 March. Very, very close to these highs. Didn't quite get to that high, but we did touch this zone here. Either way, we're still well above 468.84. Gapped above that level, held the zone, held the retest, and then continued higher. The RSI continues to be bullish there, so that's what we're looking for. Looking for that push through at this point. Looking for that next level, 498.96 is the next level, as long as 486.84 continues to hold. We're really close to that in the after hours. Kind of surprising how close we did get in that last candle of the day, which is a little bit over 0.5% to the downside, but we'll see. Is this zone going to hold up or not? Is it going to fall through here to 477.84 as your next support? You still have the 55 in there at 484.80, and then the next one there, 480.77. So you do have a little bit of support in here. Structurally, this is now a high, higher high, waiting to see if we get a low, higher low in here, and that continuation to that almost 500 level. Moving over to the Tasty charts, you can see what a terrible buy price in here, but the structure is still bullish, looking for this zone in here to hold, and as long as it does, we're looking for this to push back to that upper ATR band. That upper band right now is sitting at 496.57, so that would give you quite a bit of upside potential, almost $10, $8, somewhere in there to that upper band. You can see rallied up. Really shallow pullback, rallied up, looking for this to hold. It was a little bit choppy on the up move, but at this point you have to expect that with the shallow pullback, low, higher low, higher low, I'm expecting this to continue up to that upper band around the 496.50 level based on this chart. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, same thesis across the board on these. You can see still very much bullish, gapped higher and rallied through to the next level, 201.88, almost hit the trend, didn't quite get there. Momentum flipping back to bullish on the Russell. RSI continues to look bullish here. It is falling just a smidgen after hours. Want to see it get above 201.88 on a closing basis, and then you can see the next level here. Let's go ahead and extend that out. That would take you to that 200 on the Dow. That's right around 420.01, potentially a little bit higher than there, and then the next level for me would be 426.20. So looking for this zone in here to go through and then get to this one here if it's going to go. The momentum, like I said, continues to fade, but this structure just is super bullish. We didn't even pull back to the 21 EMA, which tells me there are still a bunch of buyers in here driving this price higher. Moving over to the Mag 7, still consolidation at the 200, but it did close right at the level 283.46, just below it by 8 cents. Again, the RSI turning back to the upside. The SMA didn't even get retested. We're still in here on this consolidation. It's held up really, really well for 6 trading days at this point. And like I said, I just have to assume that this is going to go up to here, which is about another 4 to 4.5% higher, somewhere in there. The trend line in there as well, right around this kind of 296 area. The market has just held up a lot better than I expected. We didn't even pull back to the 21 EMA on this retracement, which again, for me, super shallow pullback. bullish thesis. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple had a terrible day yesterday, and it did have a strong one here today. 0.63 to the upside. Microsoft going higher as well, over 1% higher, hitting that next level. 440.72 was the next target, overthrew that pretty substantially. Now at this point, we're waiting to see, do we get a little bit of a pullback? You're definitely extended, interesting, but structurally still very bullish and continuing to push through here on Microsoft. Really, really strong, which makes sense. Once we got through this neckline, lots and lots of buyers there for Microsoft. Like I said, for Apple, huge down day, no follow through on it. Still right at this key level, 196.79, got back above it, looking for a push to this 207 area if it can hold this zone in here. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA, these had really good days as well. Tesla up 3%, NVIDIA up about a quarter. Retested the level, held the level. So far, we're right at it. You can see we're right at the indicator there, 116.70. If it holds this tomorrow, I might look into buying some of these for a potential run to 124. This just seems really strong as long as 116 holds as support. And we did talk about the potential for reductions in restrictions to chip sales around the world, which obviously is super bullish for NVIDIA if that happens. So for now, both of these look really strong. Tesla looking for a push to the 200 at least at 292. Next level, 301.93. Moving over to staples versus discretionaries. Here you can see staples was down, discretionaries was up. So we're starting to see a little bit more risk on. Part of me says this is just a first push and we might have quite a bit here more to go. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Right now, risk on for markets. Moving over to gold, we talked about this yesterday. We said it was super bearish, at least to the consolidation, at least to the 21 EMA, and sure enough, it went right there down almost 2%. It's catching a little bit of a bounce from the 21 EMA, but we're right back below this trend line. I just don't love it. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. You have to assume that this has a little bit more downside in it. You could trade off the 21 EMA 303.74. Does it hold this zone in here or not? If it breaks through there, the next level is the trend down here around 288. If it holds this level, maybe we get kind of a third top in here. But for me, I think you're chasing. If you try to go bullish, realistically, I think there's more opportunity to the downside here. Moving over to breadth, I expected this to crater, and so far it has not. So we had 3 down days. We ended up gapping higher and holding. Still in the same zone. We could hang out here for a little while on 20-day. I've seen it hang out here for multiple weeks in a row, but who knows what it's going to do. Right now, we're still here. We didn't get any follow through on those 3 down candles. Momentum is still fading, but the RSI went higher off of that SMA. So at least a lower high setup, something like that. And then look at 50-day, big push higher, up almost 8%, and that was after throwing a big wick. So we got a big test of those levels. At this point, it just seems like we're going to get a bigger test of this next level, at least to the 69, maybe as high as that 77 area. So seems like I underestimated the rally that we could see from these really critical lows. We did get very, very low, all the way down into the 4 range, which is not super common on 50-day. And the rally out has been very aggressive. Moving over to the dollar really liked the trade deal here today. So the dollar was up almost 1%, just shy of it, 0.75% in there. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. You can see super overbought on the hourly chart through a bunch of wicks to the upside, but well above that 99.83 level. We got above it here, retested. Now we're through that 21 EMA. You can see that was resistance. We pushed cleanly through that. Next is 101.25. And I think this is relatively bullish for markets as well. Typically, as the dollar moves lower, that means people are moving into equities, which is bullish. But when it just continues to crater like this, that is not a stable environment for equities to do it. So this is not great. Want to see it stabilize and rally a little bit. And so far, that has been okay for equities in the short term. Moving over to bonds, JNA did not move at all. Everybody's happy on the business side, but TLT did fall a little bit here. You can see down a little bit over 1%. And I think this is because if we see a little bit more economic strength, that means the Fed is less likely to cut, which means yields are going to stay higher and TLT will stay lower. But in my opinion, they are not going to raise rates by any means. So in here, still very much a buying opportunity. Maybe it goes a little bit lower to the 82 area, but not a ton of potential for that. And if we did get below 85, anything in here is a buying opportunity. I still see 1 to 2 cuts this year, and that is what the Fed signaled, and that's what the market expects as well. Moving over to the VIX, you can see the VIX is cratering. We talked about it yesterday. Breakdown, retest, breakdown. Seems like that is more the thesis. The RSI is bearish, so expecting this to go lower. Couple more days, at least to the 20 level, maybe the 1850 level. Maybe this has actually subsided a little bit more than I thought. Maybe we go as low as this 17, kind of 16 to 17 area. That would be interesting, but at least to 20, which gives you 1 to 2 more days, at least in my opinion. Moving over to my accounts, I decided to get bullish, and I, of course, bought at the absolute worst time. But I do like the structure here, and I did decide to sell covered calls, so it wasn't absolutely terrible. Of course, I got squeezed on the call that I had short going into the day, and that was the majority of the losses. You can see I did lose 850 here, but I had a covered call on for the session, so I was protected from about half of that. The rest of the losses there, besides this Boeing loss, was the squeeze on that initial rally, so not super great. Again, structurally though, I think this is still bullish, and I am going to try to hold it here to the bull side as long as that 486 level holds. And then Boeing, if you look at this chart, it's absolutely super bullish. Had a huge breakout above consolidation, so gonna see if that holds up. Taking a little bit of risk there. This is just a synthetic stock position. Sold the put to finance the call. Pretty far out in the money. Pretty far dated, but I do think that there is potential for this to go higher here today and over the next week or two. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of today's news. What did you think about the moves in the market today? Can it be sustained? Are we going to get the follow through to the upside or not? Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.